So, it seems the D-Ranks challenge was more popular than I thought it would be. Yeah, it took me a while to get around to it for the noise, but, you know, I wonder how necessary this video even would really be to do. If you can do the challenge with one character, you likely can do it with the other. And yes, the irony is not lost on me given what I typically do on this channel. Though the noise does have some interesting differences that make this challenge play out fairly differently. Now, as the sequel to my most viewed video ever, it's likely you're aware of this already, but we not only can only finish levels with D ranked as our highest rank, but we also must avoid taking any more than 9 damage when attempting a level. If we take 10 or more, well, nothing will happen, but what good would there be in a challenge without stakes, am I right? Right, let's begin. You know this challenge will be fun when there's an achievement tied to the concept. Since doing this challenge with Peppino, there are some inaccuracies I shared there that it'll be worthwhile to correct here. Amongst them is the fact that you don't have to hug the wall to hop over the tomato topping. You can just crouch jump over it. You have to be close to be able to make the leap, but it is nonetheless possible to do. The other toppings though are no big deal whatsoever. They may be in the way, but the noise has some movement options to trivialize the already trivial toppings much more. You can up and fly over enemies and sources of points, bear in mind. Anyways, with a D-rank cutoff of 2,000 points, it's not hard to pull 2 toppings at a time. Fun fact, to measure what a D-rank is for each level, just take the S-rank requirement and divide it by 8. Most levels don't really change significantly enough where I feel like it's worth going in depth about how the noise experiences the level compared to Peppino. But thanks to being able to crusher jump, Pete's Escape is not one of those levels. Theodorus has a move that can shatter metal blocks from above at any height, while Peppino has to transform into a knight in order to do so, and it means there's one less priest Theodorus forced to interact with, as he can skip the last one just before pizza time. That's 500 points he can save, and it means he can pull 2 toppings out per trip, which is great for time. That's a big deal when this is a level where your points will stop counting down long before Pizza Face becomes active, and starts giving chase, and the D-rank cutoff is only 2,500 points. Given you receive 1,000 points per toppin and have to interact with 2 priests at minimum, that's 3,000 points already. This of course can be made less severe by taking damage, as that reduces our score by 50 points each time it happens, but if we take more than 9 damage, well, you already know. The noise is irate enough as is just seeing a D rank. I don't want to give him even more of a reason to want to murder me. Just save the tomato for last because that requires a 3rd priest to be interacted with. Otherwise, make like Nike and just do it. Since I want to cover this challenge in the order I did stuff, let's talk about Pepperman real quick and bosses in general. Bosses in this game are simple in how scoring works. Your rank depends on your remaining health and extra if you have any. Pepperman just required I take 9 damage throughout the battle and then I win. When I livestreamed this challenge before deciding that it would be boring to do again, I must have missed that I picked up health when maxed out already and saw that steamy stinky C rank, which marked the death of my run. You can actually push him away from the statue, and if you do that... Wait, what? That was 8? But when did I get when my health is full? What? Well... Resetting the save file. Crap. I sure hope this doesn't serve to bite me in the butt later on. All of the hazards and enemies here in the tight spaces we find ourselves in make this the hardest level on the first floor. However, the noise has the movement options to make Bloodsaw's dungeon much more comfortable to navigate, as they can fly over the many clocks during pizza time that Peppino often would find themselves trying in vain to jump over. As a result, we don't really need to take damage to the same extent as Peppino did, and can often just camp outside the exit door once our score drops low enough. I also feel the need to state this, but if you're prone to seizures or epilepsy, I'll have sound effects playing so that you know to look away from the screen. And don't worry, you'll know when it's safe to look again. I promise you that. Unfortunately, the usual grievances Blood Sauce offers where only 1 topping can really be gotten per trip after the first remains, since the sausage is forced every time. I also can't phase through stuff because I'm a human, not a computer, so no pause tricks. I'd call the sausage a wiener again, but topping girls. Whatever happened to chivalry? There really isn't much I have to say here that wasn't already said. If you're looking to collect the cheese topping, be sure to do it before pizza time so that you're not forced to pick up the clocks on the return trip as they add to your score. The pineapple will take a pretty precise jump to leap over it, but otherwise, it really should not be a big deal. Yeah, that's really it! There's otherwise no priest to avoid, and though a few toppings are harder to avoid, it's by no means unmanageable. I'll just be speeding through other levels that provide nothing new as opposed to the original version of this challenge, so check out that video if you'd like a more full picture. This place. The upside, it's short. The downsides? It's probably the hardest level to squeeze toppings out of. Most levels can see us fly over the plains and pull out 2 if not 3 toppings out at a time. Even levels with priests at least have them be possible to take 2 toppings at a time out due to being able to take damage to bypass them and avoid the 500 points they give. This level though, much like Pete's Escape, does not let you take damage while transformed, and it means most priests here are unskippable. Try as you might, you can't complete it with a D rank without taking way too much damage. And at that point, like, it wouldn't be much of a challenge. Heck, even Pete's Escape actually has an additional priest be skippable thanks to Noise's Crusher Jump. No such luxuries here, unfortunately. It is possible to get toppings out of here, but we'd have to take a much more unorthodox route to avoid enough points to see your score fall low enough. I'm talking about entering a secret which has its own forced points to avoid the priest at the end of the room. It's that bad. And even then, it'll be all for naught if we can't skip the priest in the Pillar John room, which requires a technique used in speedruns for this game. It's a trick discovered by Black SR called John Skip, and it allows you to skip the priest in this room, which makes all the difference in D ranking being possible. But since it's a trick that's utterly horrible to do if you're not privy to setups for it, I am instead just going to skip Wastyard entirely for now. If we need to come back here, we will, but for now, we're at a 5 topping deficit, so only 4 toppings can be missed for the rest of the game. I forgot the time. D-ranking Oregano Desert is a decently easy time thanks to toppings being out of the way for the most part, since you have to enter Marza Holden to be able to access them in the first place. The Fire Valve transformation can be a bit of an issue as that leads to needing to interact with priests, but only when it's ever required. Otherwise, you can just let a tribal cheese give you the axe, or have a cow kick you to knock the odor out of it and keep on going your merry way. If you really wanted, it's possible to gain 3 toppings in one of your 2 trips and stay under both your damage limit and point limits. I cannot complain, not one bit. Fun Farm is as easy as with Peppino and doesn't really add enough difference with the noise where I feel it needs to be looked at here. What I said in the original iteration of this challenge largely holds true here. I did have 1 reset due to damage, but that's kinda whatever. Just goes to show you can't afford to be premature with choking the chicken. I ain't looking to cough anything up if you catch my drift. It was a similar story to the second boss to Vigilante. Was doing well for most of it, but I tripped up and took 1 hit too many at the end. Nice thing though is we can lock the Vigilante with bombs so that he can't do much but get back into position and keep getting smacked around. So we can start by taking a lot of damage and then get our health back as we bully the chasing cop until the cows come home. Just a tragedy that with how we went about this fight, they never quite did. I might actually say that Fun Farm is harder than here because of how much control the noise has in the air. You can actually avoid waking the chicken banditos up by just flying above them, which helps considerably during pizza time. There otherwise isn't anything I have to add. You get 2 toppings per trip and just leave. And you're fairly free to take your time if you end up being too slow to win a race against the horsey, so you're really just cruising. It's a good thing the cutoff for D-rank heroes as high as it is, because the barrel transformation is considerably harder to discard here than most others. There are 6 priests you can interact with, but 2 of them are forced, being the first in the whole level, and the first priest you'll reach once pizza time begins. The reason for this is because the Noise's barrel movement is faster than that of Peppino's, so where Peppino can slowly creep towards the priest but can then turn around and then damage, the Noise moves too fast and will make contact before being able to turn around. Despite this, it's technically possible to squeeze 2 toppings out per trip, but it's hard. You have to play near perfect in avoiding points and taking damage so as to have a low enough score, which would also mean actually only getting your barrel taken by 2 priests so as to be under the score enough. That's not easy to do if you can't reliably avoid the last one in the level, especially if you're trying to avoid the pineapple topping on the return trip. And I can't even claim to have done it because my damage limit caught me when trying to rush out, since you need enough time to pass for your points to decay beyond the D rank cutoff. Fortunately, you at least had the means to avoid a lot of points Peppino could only dream of dodging, so one topping per trip isn't the hardest thing to do. It just takes a while. Longer than I like, but what can you do? Oh boy, this level. If you have seen my original D-Ranks only video with Peppino, you may remember the level War, where we barely could even get one topping out due to the reduced options to lower our score, and the forest topping cutting us off from every other available topping in the level. Gnome Forest is basically Theodor's version of War, except better in some areas and worse in others. Not only is the D-Rank cutoff lower than average, but most of the toppings here are impossible to avoid, due to how the noise interacts with the Pizza Hut as opposed to Gustavo and Brick. Where those two could take a gnome pizza with them and let it get cold to avoid toppings entirely, the noise will blow right past them. Basically, there is no time limit. And that would be fine if the Pizza Huts could be avoided, but it turns out that only one of them can be jumped over, being the tomato, while the pineapple can be ignored entirely by just taking a different route during pizza time. The mushroom, cheese, and sausage are all forced, and that means you're stuck with 3,000 points that you cannot ignore at all. Bear in mind that the D-Rank cutoff here is only 2,375 points, and you can lose a max of 450 by taking damage since you can only play this level with the noise, so there's no one else that can take some of the pain for you. So you're going to need to avoid a lot of points for your point decay to get you back under the C-Rank threshold. You know what? Screw Chivalry. I have never seen such a toxic mushroom in my life, and I spent most of my time playing Mario games. Meanwhile, the cheese really tries to act holier than thou other toppings, but doesn't even have the decency to be Swiss. I hate them. Sadly, because it's so difficult to D-Rank this level as is, there is no shot that the other two toppings can be gotten out of here. So that puts us at a 7 topping deficit. And keep in mind, we can only afford to miss 9 toppings for the whole game. Any more than that, and the challenge has failed. With that said, let's keep moving. Oh, and yeah, I guess I can call the sausage not a wiener, but I'll call her a word that I can't say because this is a channel for good boys and girls. Ah, space. Something the noise can just swim through with ease. The cheese topping is less of a pain, as you can ignore some of the asteroids once you make your way back up the chute, since the noise doesn't combust upon impact with the wall like Peppino does with the rocket. He can also fly around asteroids without needing good timing when heading to the first rocket, can navigate around areas with points and enemies, again just by flying around, and can even avoid a number of points in the area where Jerome can be found by flying to the second secret and warping to the bottom after clearing it. You can't collect any more toppings than with Peppino, at least in my understanding, but 2 toppings per trip all the same is plenty possible. Trust me, I tried 3, didn't work very well. Reason why is that the asteroids you see here all give 100 points each when smashed, and there's a lot that you flat out can't ignore. C'est la vie, I suppose. Following the final frontier, we fight the phone noise, also known as the Doys. And no, it is not lost on me that in a D-only challenge, the Doys features a D in his name. Regardless, all that's relevant to mention here is we get only 5 health pickups as this fight progresses, so by the time we win, we have only 2 left. Easy enough. Oh goody, golf. I'm sure some of y'all are aware of this, but it's actually impossible to not Primo Berg here. The noise will increase the par to match the number of strokes against the grease ball, and that means you're always getting 400 points extra. This does mean we're hard pressed to pull up more than 2 toppings at a time, but the reality is the point decay in golf still makes for a relatively easy romp in D-ranking it. At least provided you know how to perform golf skip so that you're not forced to take 1,200 more points, as the pineapple topping railroads you into even more unavoidable points. Yeah, the topping continues to be a prick, but you know, I actually like pineapple when it's all alone. You know, the fruit is great, just not on a pizza. Most of what I can say is to not be slow about reaching the exit, or you may as well reach it like I had to once. You probably expected this level to be a lot harder, but the reality is it just isn't. Slower, yes, but if we were able to pull multiple top-ends out in one run to begin with, it really speaks for itself. Also, not to break the pace of this video, but whoever discovered Golf Skip, I'd like to credit you. It might be the Vlak SR person again, but I don't actually know for a fact if so. The only real difference worth mentioning between here and now and my last video is the amount of damage Theodore can take total is cut in half. You're still not lacking in options to avoid points, and the ability to reload the room leading to the exit door by just holding up means point decay is as reliable as ever to fall back below the C rank cutoff. Might be the easiest level in the whole game for this reason, especially when Gustavo and Break were never known for being very mobile anyway. Also, we're just going to skip the Peppybot factory. Barring any brain farts with avoiding priests, this level is no harder than with Peppino, and there's nothing I really have to add here. A correction to be made from my original video on this challenge is that you can't avoid the first priest by dragging the Switchies down to where it can attack you. Because of this, 2 top-ends per trip is a reliable pace. There are still lots of enemies you'll struggle to avoid, but the points forced on you there are honestly negligible, even with the added rats and pizza time. You don't benefit quite as much from flying all over the place though, due to the level path being as narrow as it is, so remember the fundamentals and get that dough. With little else being pressing to focus on at the moment, Fake Peppino is a boss I think deserves a fair amount of attention. To D-rank this boss, whether as Peppino or the Noise, will take some strategic play, as just taking damage alone won't suffice. For Peppino, you need to make sure not to pick up a single hat when your health is full, and you must enter the chase with the Fake when your health is at an odd number, whether 3 or 5. This won't work with the Noise because, in the words of Shrek,
I'm scarier than anything we're gonna see in this forest.
And we can't end the level with more than 1 health because if we did, we'll get a C rank, which would see us fail. So what's our solution? Well, it's surprisingly not simple. To D-rank Peppino, we need to play normal up to the last 2 hits we need to get on him. Here, our goal is to, while having 1 hit point, strike him with a bomb to stun him, and then bomb him again while one of his clones is spawning and seeking to hurt us. What will happen then is the 4 beneath us will vanish to send us to the chase, but the Noise will pick up another hit point which puts us at 2 health. And while airborne and the Peppino clone is aiming to hurt us, stall in the air, whether through an uppercut, crusher jump, what have you. We'll get hurt and fall back down to 1 hit left, and the chase will continue as normal where Theodore tells Peppino to watch it buff. Yeah, even this boss can be D-ranked. Amazing, I know. So remember how the point cutoff for D-rank is like way lower than it's supposed to be here? I guess it was fixed in an update now because now if your score drops to a D rank, what you see is actually what you'll get. 2,275 points is pretty low to stay under still, but not being blindsided is the most important thing. Thanks to being able to fly all over the level as opposed to just during the escape, most of this level is trivialized pretty hard. Even the top-ends themselves are less difficult to leap over in general. The mushroom can see you just fly over, and the tomato can be ignored entirely if you just ignore the door that it's supposed to be behind. It's really just a testament to how much is opened up to you when you have the Satan's Source pizza from the very beginning. And we don't even need to get it since the Noise can just break ice blocks without it. We sadly can't clean this area out in less than 3 trips though, but what can you do? Great. This place. All of the enemies, along with the traps from the Ghost King, make getting hit way easier than would be appreciated. I've even been hit in the whole top-ends, which on the face of it means a failure because that's a lot of points you'd have to sink, and odds are we're not going to be able to lose enough points before bailing out. Despite this fear, it actually is very possible to collect 3 top-ends in 1 trip and leave, which is very interesting considering how badly I fought trying to stall waiting to see if my score would go down enough. And otherwise, your ability to fly makes the ghost anchors a non-issue as you fly over the triggers that send them hellwards. That would have been helpful to know for a previous challenge I tried. It really puts into perspective how much more dangerous it feels being confined to the ground because I remember losing runs to damage fairly often when doing this run with Peppino. Yeah, Noise kinda just goes meow all over the place here. Sadly, I don't think enough points here can be avoided to pull out more than just a tomato here. Even with damage, 450 points isn't even half of enough points to make up for a Toppin's bonus to your score. And since there's no pizza time, your points never decay, and it's not possible to get a lower score through selling at the exits. A lot of points are also still just unavoidable, so even if you try to avoid as many points as possible, you'd still be closer to a C rank than not, which would mean a D rank with 2 Toppins isn't possible. Gotta love the War Tomato, as rotten as ever. I say you can't trust her as far as you can throw her, but throwing tomatoes is actually a thing that people do. Shame how this level is so much easier with the noise, but no more productive to clear. And with only 1 Toppin to win, we're now at an 11 Toppin deficit. With $140 and needing 210 to challenge Pizza Face, we are already at a significant loss. So, we are unfortunately going to need to look at Wastyard. But first, with how the noise interacts with jump scares, we actually do have to try now. Gone are the days of letting the Toppin monsters drop our score to 0 after all the Toppins have been collected, as the noise now doesn't lose any points at all if he gets caught. We can still comfortably score 2 Toppins per trip, and it isn't like the level itself is that challenging anyway. Even if the Toppin monsters don't lower your score for free, they don't count as damage either. And nothing that isn't a static hazard can harm you anyway until pizza time where the Piranhables will exist. It's still an easy level, it's just not something you can play on literal autopilot anymore. This brings our total up to $190 now, meaning we're 2 Toppins short of being able to beat the game. Problem is that we've exhausted all of our other options, so with nowhere else to run, let's go ahead and get some Toppins out of Wastyard. Okay, I got it. Back in this, I have to break that metal block now without activating pizza time. Then I have to get the chicken potato to jump up here so that I can actually throw it at the Killer John. Got it. Okay. Alright. Now I can actually get a Toppin out of here. Let's see if I can do this. Okay, that was some faster than I expected. That was scary. That was way too freaking scary. Overall, it took me roughly an hour to get what I needed out of here. An hour of flying over unwanted points, being harassed by mini-johns trying to avoid killing them, and being tripped up on simple mistakes trying to minimize my score. Despite this, I think this level is still considerably easier than with Peppino, as if I succeeded at skipping the first pizza time priest, it's relatively easy to avoid points on the way back at the start thanks to the added movement options given. With Peppino, I would have times where I would have to stall off the timer with my damage limit already met, and I still run the risk of Pizza Face sending me 6 feet under. The noise, meanwhile, has the leeway to take the damage needed to leap the D rank long before time is going to expire. As long as you can pull up the skip, surprisingly, Wastyard, despite being the most difficult level in this challenge, isn't nearly as hard as Bloodsaw's dungeon, or even Crest Cove with Peppino at the wheel. This gives us the necessary funds to challenge Pizza Face now, which isn't really worth talking about. We take well below 9 damage here, and this leads us to the final level. The Crumbling Tower of Pizza is an honest-to-god enigma in this challenge. The ease of avoiding points here does help a lot, but we can't really afford to be slow here because once time runs out, it's a loss for us. However, we also really don't have to go very slow either, as the point decay from the timer generally works plenty well enough, so long as we're at least competent about avoiding adding to our score. The only real issue we're bringing up here is the fact that after making our way through most of the level, we get to the golf part, and that should tell you a lot on its own. Alongside picking up way too many points to stay at a D rank for the first time trying this level, I also was just going way too freaking slow. Wasn't even close to finishing. Meanwhile, my successful attempt really goes to show how lenient this level really is when trying to go fast. I got a lot of unwanted points and still was able to fall back under a C rank just from taking some extra damage from a ranch shooter, and flying over the massive numbers of points in the straight shot back to the entrance. Having a lot of time left at the end really did prove to pay off, as I could just avoid all of the last points to be found and see my final D rank be rewarded to me at the very end of the level. And that, my friends, is a wrap. So, can you beat Pizza Tower with only D ranks using the noise? Yes. There were some interesting differences concerning the Peppino boss in the Gnome Forest, but the latter isn't quite as decisive as most would probably think. After all, even if the tomato there wasn't possible to avoid, it just means we'd have to get all 5 toppings out of Wastyard. Which sure wouldn't be pleasant, but the option is there, right? Right. Now, I'd like to extend a thank you to my channel members, MB Switchy, Splash A, and Nintendo 60Jorts. This might be my last Pizza Tower video, might not, I don't know. Depends on if I can present my Gnomok running challenge in a way that doesn't come off as clickbait, and doesn't see me rip off an editing style from a content creator leagues above me. Until then, this is Phantom A, give me money, thank you for watching.